So just so everybody knows, if you see us all getting up and leaving, you don't need to do the same. So we need to go get a picture with our new fire truck outside. So we're going to go get our picture, but please stay here. We'll be back and start the meeting very shortly. Incentive is to do it after the meeting. Okay, I think, am I on? Manuel, how are you? Good to see you here this evening. Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody out to our regular scheduled city council meeting. So before we do get to our invocation and our pledge, there is a matter of business we need to take care of before that. So if anybody is on Instagram or follows any of those social media, there was a challenge put out by myself to Councilor McGee. We did have a football game last week. Was it last week or week before? 2 weeks ago. Caldwell High versus Valley View High. I'm a graduate of Caldwell High School, proud graduate, and Councilor McGee is a proud graduate of Valley View High School. So the deal was losing team had to wear the other's Letterman jacket. So it was a good game for the first quarter. After that, the Cougars kind of started falling behind, and so they did win. So I will be donating Councilor McGee's Letterman jacket for the meeting tonight. So appreciate him bringing it in. Back here.
Well, it's got all these state champion patches on it, so it might be a little heavy. Just be a little heavy.
Oh,
Thank you, Mayor.
But I will note that the graduation year is quite a few years before mine. Maybe not quite a few, but at least a few. So it doesn't feel too bad. So, but just maybe touch on that real quick too before we jump in. That was such a fun event. Really appreciate the College of Idaho, working with us, Valley View School District, Caldwell School District, their athletic directors. It was an amazing event. It was so fun. I brought back so many memories from when I was in high school. We played all our football games there at Simplot Stadium, and it was just neat to see the community come together. So many people that probably never go to high school football games nowadays were there because of that, and we really hope to make it an annual tradition. So want to continue to work with the college to see what we could do to just make that game just every year down there and just something special. And it was great for the schools, so I know that they were able to raise a lot of money from their ticket sales, people coming in. I know I talked to the basketball coach, Ashley Green. We graduated together from Caldwell High. she says they've never made that much money selling, they sell shaved ice and cotton candy, and they just killed it. So it was a great thing for the students as well and to raise money for them. So hopefully we can continue to do that. Excited to work with College of Idaho on that. So yeah, not too bad. And maybe next year, Councilor McGee. Well, I guess you won't be on the council.
Well,
We'll bring you in the audience.
say,
You can wear it during the audience.
Mayor, I'll speak on behalf of Valley View. We want to make that an annual tradition as well. So if we can keep scheduling that game, that'd be great.
I think it has been for a while, but anyway. But yes, thank you for that. We appreciate that. Okay, so now on to our business. So we will have an invocation offered by Lieutenant Amy Lewis of the Caldwell Salvation Army. Appreciate her and all she does for our community. And then, so if you please stand for that and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you so much for asking me to do this. It's always such a pleasure to be able to pray openly and publicly like we're allowed to here in this country. So, and if you'll just prepare yourself however you're accustomed. Dear God, we just thank you so much for being you, Lord, for being at the center of everything that we do and that we have available to us. God, we thank you so much for your role as creator, preserver, and governor of all things. And Lord, it is through you that we're able to live our lives as we do. God, I know there's many times where we fall short and we are not nearly as faithful as you are. But Lord, we know that you're always there, willing and waiting for us to turn to you and to submit our will into line with yours. God, I just thank you so much. I thank you for everyone in this room, for all that they care for the community of Caldwell. Lord, I thank you for the council and the commitment and the time that they give to serve the community of Caldwell, and to our mayor as well, and what an example of service that he is to all of us. God, I know that you guide their direction, and Lord, I just pray for continued discernment on their parts to be able to uplift our community and just make it into the vital area that it is today. Lord, I know that there are many in our community, Lord, who may not know you at this moment, but I know through others that they will and that they can. And God, we bring before you everyone who needs to know you, who doesn't know you at this moment in time. And Lord, that they are just living a life apart from you. But Lord, I know that through your Son and through your Holy Spirit that we can all live our lives together. Lord, we just love you and we praise you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Lieutenant Amy. We appreciate you being here, and even more appreciate all that you do for our community with the Salvation Army on that. And maybe just to touch real quick as well. We instituted this last year. We do it again this year at the city for our employees. We do a turkey challenge to see which department can raise the most money to buy the most turkeys. And then we donate those to the Salvation Army, and then the winning department gets a little pizza party on that. So we're excited to do that again this year, and we'll be rolling that out soon to our employees to start raising money. So it's it's always needy time of year for families throughout the community, but especially during the holidays. And it's hard to believe, but it's almost Thanksgiving. So we'll be starting that up here very soon. I appreciate the partnership we have with Lieutenant Amy and everything she does for our community. Madam Clerk, if you please call the roll.
Allgood?
Here.
Williams?
Here.
Goddard?
Here.
Register?
Here.
McGee?
So all council members are here and present. Are there any conflict of interest declarations from any members of the council regarding any of the items on the agenda this evening? Okay, we do have one special presentation, and I did see you in the audience, so if you please come forward. This is for the updated report for the Senior Produce Program by the University of Idaho Extension. The time is yours.
Great, thank you.
And then, Lindsay, if you don't mind, just introduce yourself to the council, make sure everybody knows who you are.
Yes. Good evening. My name is Lindsay McConnell-Soong. I am with the University of Idaho Extension. I'm here representing the Caldwell Health Coalition. I support that through my position as Health Equity Director for Extension. And just happy to provide you with an update on annual report with the data from this season's program. All right. There we go. All right. Just want to briefly reintroduce to you our partners and our sponsors along with the City of Caldwell. So as I mentioned, the Senior Produce Program is a program of the Caldwell Health Coalition, and that is co-facilitated by Daniel Adams from Southwest District Health and also our Canyon County Extension educator, Tasha Howard. And then we've partnered with Destination Caldwell to be able to implement this at the Farm to Fork Market during the summer months. City of Caldwell is one of our great sponsors, but then our other sponsors for 2023 is St. Luke's. They've supported the program since its pilot year. And then this year we also brought on Intermountain Healthcare and Salter Health that supported us as well. All right, so before I jump into, oops, did I do that? Okay. Before I jump into the data and just a brief review of this past season, I wanted to share with you just this 5-minute video that we have produced with our University of Idaho communications team. This is a really big accomplishment for us, and we're hoping to be able to use this to share our story greater with our impact, and then also perhaps encourage others to replicate this program in their communities. And you might notice a few, local stars, not myself, but one you might recognize. Okay, go ahead.
It's surprising with Caldwell being such an agricultural area. We produce a lot of our own food that meet the USDA definition of food desert and two of the primary zip codes in Caldwell. In addition, our local senior population make up a disproportionate amount of the Idahoans and people in this community that are served from our local food ministries as well. So we knew that this was a need before we started the program. It's quite a big project. We built it from the ground up in 2021. It was a pilot project that was born out of some of our coalition members' concerns about our senior population, especially with the pandemic.
This economy has really been punching me in the gut. There have been some people that know I usually buy and have been very generous to me, and that means a lot.
The taxpayer dollars that we contribute to the program, we want to make sure that those are good costs and being used effectively in our community, and we can see 100% that all the money that we're putting into that, it gets back to the community tenfold.
So what we do is utilize our funding to spread it throughout all 4 months of the market season, and each week, seniors can come up to the booth and get, this year it's $8 in vouchers. They use like cash to shop for fresh and local produce.
For the senior program, it gets overfull. People buy vegetables, eggs, honey. They're very nice.
I'm finding I'm having a really kind of great get here about those perks.
But I love it, and people are just absolutely wonderful that I make that.
The Senior Farmers Market program here in Caldwell is the only one in the state. And what we would love to see is other communities begin to replicate that.
I've been doing farmers market, my family and I have for about 20 years ourselves, and it has been so exciting to see the market grow tremendously. I even had a lady come up and she shared with me that for a lot of her friends, this is the only produce that they get all week.
We really want to see sustainability, of course. We're still in the early stages and working to solidify all of these pieces that we're learning to use for success. My hope is to continue with our local sponsorship and keep this a locally sourced program.
Biggest thing for me is just to encourage other cities to look into it. One of those programs that really sees the benefit of it, and the relationship that the city is creating with the University of Idaho on this program. It's been a great benefit all the way around.
This is really a step into being more of a visible and really valuable community health partner in projects like this.
Well, working alongside with this program, we can get nutrition education out, we can teach how to eat smart, how to cook and prepare food in a healthy way.
We have a lot of our Mayor's Youth Advisory Council members that volunteer. So these are 16, 17-year-old kids getting to interact with, 70, 80-year-old people.
This municipal garden, it's just a reminder of like my grandma, and I'm just like very grateful to be having that interaction, and I think it always leads me. I feel like for me, it's also, like, I found more confident than I would. I had an interaction with somebody who was like Spanish speaking, and I started speaking to them in Spanish, and I was like, oh, have you heard about this? This is what we do. And she was just like so relieved to talk to me, because she was like, oh, I was nervous, and I really wanted to hear about this.
The great thing about the Produce program is how successful it's been over the last few years.
I keep coming, I definitely spend my senior bucks. I definitely would say without the program, our sales would not be as great as they are with the program.
The thing that gives me the most joy is getting basically hand seniors the vouchers for the week, because we talked a lot about theoretical change, but this is getting the actually make change and like see people like be able to immediately go buy produce.
It's an exciting thing to be part of anything that's, you know, grassroots. And I hope that it continues, I hope that it grows and spreads to honestly all markets in our great state of Idaho.
Well, now that we're all warm and fuzzy from that wonderful video, I'll just take a few more moments to highlight this year's program outcomes. Just give us a moment to get the slides back up. Okay. Oh, no, I've gone too far. There we go. All right, so just highlighting the basic numbers for the program. This year, we increased our funding. We had $10,000 last year, and this year we were able to distribute over $16,000 in vouchers throughout the market. So that was 17 weeks in total. We accessed 487 individual households. And if you notice the picture in the right, or in the left corner there, if you were at the market around 5 o'clock on a Tuesday night, this is pretty much what you would see every week. Our booth is in the very back with the red canopy there, and our seniors that participate in the program would be lined up across the entire plaza. So with that, one of our best accomplishments to date is that 93% of our vouchers that we handed out were redeemed. So vendors get reimbursed dollar for dollar for those vouchers. So that went directly into our local farmers' pockets after providing produce for our seniors. You'll have to forgive me, I did have an error on this. I have up there that on average we had 97 new participants each week, but that should be returning. So we allotted about 120 sets of vouchers, $8 each for our participants this summer, and on average we had 97 of those seniors coming week after week. On average, we had about 23 new participants every week, and that continued even through towards the last few weeks of the market. We were still seeing 10 to 15 new seniors signing up, even later in the season. About 45% of the participants let us know that they came specifically for the program. So that translates into hundreds of seniors that came to the market that may not have otherwise without the program. So great benefit there for the market and the plaza and the events that we have there. We are primarily serving seniors in Caldwell. About 67% live here in town, but then we're also bringing in other folks. I think we had about 15, it probably shows on your handouts there, 15% came from Nampa and then other communities as well. And the majority are about 60 to 74 years old. And I have to talk about our volunteers. As you saw in the video, last year we were about 35% of our volunteers were youth. This year we're a little bit higher at 37%. In the picture there, next to me is Esteban Torres. He's a sophomore at Caldwell High School, and he's also active on the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council. So he helped out that week. And then Ellie Beck, you saw her in the video. She's now a senior at College of Idaho. She did her internship with the Caldwell Health Coalition and dedicated her summer to working on this project. And I do also always report, is, Extension Way, we have to translate those volunteer hours into an amount. This year is just over $1,800 based on the amount of time that volunteers spent with the program. Now, you might notice on your spreadsheet there that last year that was over $3,000 in volunteer hours. That's not because we had fewer volunteers. That's because even though we were offering more vouchers every week this year, we were running out of them faster. So about 45 minutes is all it took each week on average to go through 120 vouchers or more if we were making up for some other weeks. So the hardest part is turning away folks when they come up and they think they've gotten there in time and we're already out of our vouchers for the week, because as you saw that line, that happens pretty quickly. Going too fast here. So considerations as we start planning for 2024, we'd really like to see the number of produce vendors increase at the market. So we'll be discussing with the market team and Destination Caldwell how our extension networks and teams may be able to assist with that. I'm pretty confident that I can increase our funding, especially considering the past 3 years of data that we have on this program, but that doesn't do us very much good if we don't have farmers there to sell their produce at the market. So that's a balance that we need to get. And then also, despite improving our messaging in Spanish and making sure that we had appropriate staff, bilingual staff at our market, and increased that this third year, we still noticed that our Hispanic senior participation was still pretty low, about 11%, which, as we know, that's not representative of our population here in Caldwell. So at this point, we're starting to have some of those larger conversations and ask those broader questions about, what does it look like to have a culturally inclusive environment and different events that can welcome our Hispanic population in. So it's an opportunity for us to have those conversations and invite partners in to join us on that. Like we said in the video, we're encouraging replication. We're happy to be a consulting partner for other communities that might look at doing this program as well. And then in addition to that, we're looking at internal sustainability also. I coordinate the program, but my position at Extension is actually technically temporary. So we're looking at how we can make sure that this is long-term and sustainable despite any staff changes that could happen. And then, of course, just telling our story as we're doing here tonight. There is a YouTube link for the video, so I certainly encourage you all to share that out anywhere you think that might be appropriate. All right. And I shared this last year, but just to kind of summarize again what the impact we have is. We're not just impacting the nutrition of our seniors or their pocketbooks, right? We're giving them an opportunity for physical wellness, socialization, having that community sense and belonging, building that, and then also increasing the educational and professional opportunities for our youth and our adults alike. So on behalf of the Caldwell Health Coalition, our partners, the vendors, and certainly our seniors, many, many thanks to all of you for supporting this program. You are making a difference. I did include a transcription of the thank you notes that our participants left at the table to share with our sponsors, so I wanted to make sure you had those as well. And that's it for me. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have time.
Very good. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And that video was fantastic. I know you probably hate it as much as I do when you see yourself on video.
I've listened to it so many times at this point.
But it's
so
great.
Tired of my voice.
It highlights the amazing. I mean, it is an amazing program, and it's great because you're not just giving $8 cash, right? And then who knows where they're going to spend it. I mean, they have to use that money there at the farmer's market, buying those vegetables, buying those fruits. And I love that they highlighted that someone said this is the only fresh vegetables they get every week. And it gets those seniors out of the house as well and getting out there and socializing and being with other people. And so I think all around it's a great program. And the youth, I know your daughter Maylee is here as well. So just so everybody knows, so Maylee is not only a member of the Mayor's Youth, but she's on the executive committee as well on that. So great to see her here and be a part of that. And so we have a lot of ours. And also maybe one last thing before we go, if there's any questions. Julissa, who was on that video as well. So she was a member of Mayor's Youth Advisory Council. She was our vice chair last year. She graduated and she's actually on a full ride scholarship at Columbia University right now. So pretty impressive where these kids are going and what they're doing, so.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Any comments or questions from any council members?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Stoddard?
forgive me for asking a selfish question, but, I've known the Thornton family for many years, going back to Mike's father, Robert, and I didn't see any potatoes in here.
Nope.
Are you getting participation potatoes?
I haven't.
I just wonder whether Mike is still in the system yet, isn't he? Mike Thornton?
I think so. I'm not as,
I think he is, but anyway,
Limited
maybe
in
a suggestion would be to talk to the
yeah.
Idaho Potato Commission or the, Southern Idaho Potato Co-op. I would think that they would be able to help you out
Yeah.
too with some produce.
Absolutely. Yes,
So-
yeah, appreciate that. One challenge that we have sometimes is, capacity, and the coordination of the program is
Mhm.
just a tiny piece of what I do at Extension, so, but that, yes, we definitely will be looking at how we can expand that and potentially even bringing in some, backyard gardeners as well, because I know I have a surplus of veggies in the summer, and I could certainly have a place to hand those off as well, but, yeah. Any
Thank
other
you.
questions?
Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much. Is Councilor Register?
Yeah, just real quick, so do people get turned away then?
So in order to make our funding last throughout the entire season so that we can be there every week, we have to just budget how many
Have a amount.
sets of vouchers we have each week. So yes, and so it's first come, first serve.
Could you send us the link to the video and then
absolutely,
a way
yeah.
that people could donate maybe?
Yes,
or
thank
how that
you.
works?
Yes, so currently, Destination Caldwell is a 501c3, so they're a nonprofit, and they actually have a button, a link on their website. They have two different websites. There's Destination Caldwell, and then I think it's on the Indian Creek Plaza website, and because that's where the farmer's market is. So I can make sure Debbie gets that link to that as well, because they did do that for us this year. They put specifically a button where people could donate online to the Senior Produce Program.
In the video.
Yes, and the video. Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, maybe we could, get Simplot to be a sponsor, and then we have lots of potatoes.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
yeah, I think it'd be great for like them or any, really a lot of business out there. I mean, as mentioned, this is the one and only, which is amazing to me that there's not more of these, especially the success that, this has been going on for 3-4 years now.
Right.
And
yeah.
success that has had them surprise other farmers markets and cities haven't,
Yeah.
basically copied what we've been doing. And
Yeah.
so that's a huge, thank you to you and helping move this program along. And, but yeah, I think it would be a great way for, some business out there to get some name recognition, name brands out there and stuff with just how it's growing and going. So it's
Yeah.
something different to look into. But
Absolutely.
yeah, really appreciate it. Thank you
Great.
so much
Yep,
for being
thank
here.
you all so much.
Okay, that was our, here's the sheet for the comment, participation. So that was our only, special presentation this evening, and again, thank you so much for that and for being here. And we do not have anybody signed up for audience participation, so that moves us into the consent calendar.
Mayor,
Yes, Councilor Williams.
I move that we accept the consent calendar and approve it for tonight.
Very good, so we have a motion for approval of the consent calendar as printed. Do we have a second?
Second.
So motion from Councilor Williams and a second from Councilor Stodic. Is there any discussion on that motion? Okay, so with that, the voting is open. And all votes are cast, the voting is closed, and that does pass unanimously. So that approves our consent calendar. And moves us into old business. We have 2 items of old business, and this looks like a housekeeping item to consider a corrected bill, number 90-A. Maybe just a really quick synopsis on that. I'm guessing was there just a typo or something that had to be fixed on that? Robin, do you know?
Mayor and council, I believe it was the legal description. There was an error in the legal description that had to be fixed on the first item, and then the second item, it's just a clerical error that we're fixing in that one.
Okay, very good. Very good, and we'll need 2 separate motions for those, correct, Mr. Hilty, on that? Sorry, okay. Very good, so just some housekeeping items there on that, correcting that. So this first one would be just to correct the bill. This is for an annexation that was approved, and just correcting the legal description on that. So I don't know if there's any discussion or any motions for approval of that bill and ordinance.
Mr. Mayor,
Counselor Ogden.
I'll sponsor bill number 90-A, ordinance number 3484A, and move for its passage by title only and approve the summary for publication.
So we have a motion from Counselor Ogden and a second from Counselor McGee for approval, adoption of bill number 90-A, ordinance number 3484-A, by title only, to approve the summary for publication. Is there any discussion on that motion? Okay, with that, then the voting is open. And all votes are cast. Voting's closed, and that passes unanimously. So that moves us into action item number 2. Again, very similar, sounds like just correcting a clerical error on, this is bill number 43A, ordinance number 3537A for that regard. So is there any discussion or any motions for that one?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Stoddard.
I sponsor bill number 43-A, ordinance number 3537-A, by correcting the clerical error, which requests to move for its passage by title only.
Do we have a second?
Second.
So a motion from Counselor Stoddard and a second from Counselor Register for passage and adoption of bill number 43-A, ordinance number 3537-A, and moving for its passage by title only. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, with that, the voting is open. All votes are cast, the voting is closed, and that passes unanimously as well. Okay, and that moves us into our new business. So our first action item under new business will not be heard this evening and will be renoticed for a future date. So that was for subdivision 23-19. So if anybody was here for that, that is for the, looks like the 3MS subdivision, which is located on the northeast side of Elgin Street, approximately 650 feet southeast of the intersection with North 10th Avenue. So if you were here for that, it was a preliminary plat application and special use for 11 fourplex units, 1 duplex unit, for a total of 46 dwelling units. So if you were here for that item, it will not be heard tonight. It looks like new notifications will be sent out and when a date is determined. Is that correct? Okay, very good. So that moves us then to action item number 2. So we're just humming along tonight. So this is consider resolution authorizing the execution of a parking use and location agreement with 7th and Main Investment LLC to chase Mixis Creekside Development. So Mr. Hilty, time is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. This parking agreement has been some time in development, and just so there's no confusion, 7th and Main Investment LLC is the, I guess, successor in interest that DeChase has designated as the project owner for the Tillian apartment project on 7th and Main. So we're going to be talking about an agreement for parking for that development, just the apartment phase. The background of this, as some of you will recall, there had been, it had a couple of different development proposals for that site going back 6 or 7 years that just wouldn't move forward. When DeChase brought forward its proposal, it had basically a building wrapped around a parking garage, and their proposal was for the agency, the Urban Renewal Agency, to share in the cost of that development and have some ownership interest in that parking structure. As I recall, the estimated cost was $14 or $15 million, and the agency was not able to do that, and I don't think interested in it at the time. And so we began to work with DeChase on some modifications to their site plan, and we eventually wound up with what's been under construction over there for the last couple of years. But part of that negotiation involved that they would need some parking designated for their project users. Then in I believe it was March of 2022, the City Council entered into a letter of intent with DeChase regarding what now is coming forward before you as the full-fledged agreement for parking. What I plan to do in my presentation is go through what I think are sort of the fundamental points of the parking agreement. I've got a few comments about it, and then certainly stand for any questions that you have. The one thing I want to point out, the parking agreement that's been presented to you for approval flows out directly out of the letter of intent. Since the letter of intent was signed, DeChase has appeared before the Urban Renewal Agency indicating that they are not likely to proceed with the hotel phase and essentially asking for some kind of an amendment at some point to be negotiated so that they would not be required to proceed with the hotel portion of the development. The 138 spaces we'll talk about does include 33 spaces that were set aside for hotel users at the completion of Phase 2, which was the hotel phase. With respect then to the agreement itself, you'll note at the bottom of page 1, the agreement is for 75 years with a 20-year extension. We as staff understand that that is, for purposes of us here today, that's effectively permanent. They need parking for the entire useful life of the site. And so we don't pretend that that's anything other than it is. You will note, though, later on in the agreement that that is not all free parking. It is free of charge for the first 20 years, and then prevailing rates for parking in downtown Nampa would apply to these spaces after that period of time. That is all consistent with the letter of intent. All right, the top of page 2, we'll talk about permits and spaces. The project had sent to staff prior to the letter of intent what it needed for parking. And there were a couple of emails. One said 105 spaces for the apartments. One said 102 spaces for the apartments. We did get a letter from their lender indicating that their lender was proceeding on the representation that there would be 105 parking spaces available for the apartment phase. The other 33, of course, were for the hotel, as we've discussed. So in this agreement, then, if you adopt it as is, it would be 138 permits. The 138 permit holders or project users then would have access to two separate sort of categories of parking, okay? The first is called shared parking spaces. That's 138 spaces for 138 users. But those spaces are shared with downtown business owners and employees. And there will be a total of 200 permits. And bear with me, I know this gets a little bit confusing, but there's 138 spaces that they have access to that are also shared with up to 62 additional permit holders that would be downtown business owners or employees. The concept is that those 138 spaces, of course, we want them generally occupied to relieve downtown parking. The idea is that a fair number of tenants in the apartments will get up in the morning and go drive somewhere, presumably to work or school or wherever they go, and those spaces then would be available for downtown employees or business owners to come and park at. It's also, I think, an incentive to try to get business owners and employees out of the the on-street parking spaces. So 138 permits for project users, 62 permits for downtown employees for 138 spaces. That led to a concern that, well, what happens when somebody who lives in the apartment building comes back and there's not a space available, which certainly could be the case periodically. So we have this concept of overflow parking that is down at 3.2, the permitted spaces. So again, 138 permit holders, two groups of parking spaces, and then a minimum of 58 spaces would be made available as sort of overflow parking. Now, the city is free to impose whatever time restrictions and price requirements might apply to those spaces, but they would not apply to somebody who has a permit. So they're going to have essentially for the first 20 years free parking either in their 138 shared spaces with downtown employees or in the designated overflow spaces. Okay, and then we'll talk right now about where those are at. So, Emmanuel, if you could pull up page 231 out of the packet. But before we get into identifying these spaces, any questions? I know this is differing numbers and it's been confusing to negotiate, and I think I can explain at this point why we wound up where we did. Any questions about the number of permits, the shared spaces, or the permitted spaces?
Yes, Councilor, all good.
So just so I understand it, these parking spaces here, would not be open to the public, correct?
That's correct. And so, and this doesn't show up very well in this image and may not in your packet, but outlined in red, there are 94 spaces of the 138 that would be permit only. There are excluded are all of the accessible or handicap spaces. Those would be included in the definition of the permitted parking, so the overflow. Okay, so the idea there is that those spaces would be open to members of the public to park in, provided they had, of course, the appropriate license plate designation for accessible parking. Okay, Manuel, go down to 233. This is the Albany lot, even worse, but this is the rest of the 138 spaces. So 94 would be what we call the UPRR lot, and then 44, the balance, are designated there sort of in the middle of this Albany lot. The rest of those, I know it doesn't show up well, the rest of those are in yellow and constitute a portion of the additional overflow lots. And then, Emmanuel, 2 pages down. This is the Kimball lot along the tracks. It'd be to the, I guess, the southeast of Kimball. These would be the balance of the overflow lots. So again, these are lots where these permit holders from the project could park without being subject to time limits or fees. But again, that's there if those initial designated 138 spots are they can't find parking in those. The other thing I want to point out is we've gone over, the agreement provides for designating a minimum of 58 of these overflow spaces. We've designated up to 106, I think is the number. The reason is because we needed spaces out of this lot. We did not need all of those spaces. But if we break them down, we're going to have to provide for signage and so forth. And we do have the flexibility to do that down the road if we wanted to. Staff felt like just lumping all those in there would be fine because, again, you're adding spaces, you're not adding permits. Okay, so regardless of where they're parking, if they have to have overflow parking, you still have a limited number of cars. So we're not providing for additional cars to be parked, just additional spaces for them to be in. The benefit, of course, then to the city is we don't have to go through and parse through this lot and divvy up spaces into different categories.
And so just kind of touch, so this is not like the other one where these are not all permitted spaces, or there isn't signage up saying permit only parking. It's basically that, like you're saying, the overflow for them to have these spaces.
Yeah, these are not permit only spaces. Yeah. Correct. It's just that if a permit is there, right, it's not going to be enforced. The fees and time limitations would not be enforced. Okay, we talked about any questions so far? All right, let me move on.
Did you have a question?
Well, I have a lot of questions. So I don't know if you want me to stop you in the middle or wait until the end.
Maybe wait till the end.
Probably better to wait till the end.
Yeah, and I guess what I was just, I know we're complicated with the number of permits for the project, the number of permits that the city has to issue, and then the 2 kinds of parking spaces and their location. That all is confusing. And so if you've got questions about that, maybe before we go on, if you got
I don't necessarily have questions about that.
Okay.
I have some other questions that go along with it, but not how we got to that number.
Okay, fair enough. I'll move on, and then, again, if you have questions on anything, when I'm done here, obviously, I'll do my best. There's a provision in here also for short-term spaces. This is 2 parking spaces on street beyond Main Street, adjacent to the project that would be, that the developer would be able to designate as short-term, meaning parking not to exceed 20 minutes. That's going to be for drop-off, pickup, delivery, that kind of stuff. And remember that this is not just apartments. On the first floor, there is a fair amount of commercial use, that could use that kind of access. Okay. Section 5, a little bit less interesting, talks about how if some of these spaces become unavailable, the city has to provide replacement spaces. There's a provisions concerning the possible construction of a parking structure. The developer knows that is a possibility that we are looking into for downtown. I will, at the risk of oversimplifying, if they want to move some of these spaces into the parking structure, they have to pay for them. If we want to relocate them there for whatever reason is beneficial to the city, then they would be subject to the terms of the agreement, essentially free for the first 20 years. All right. I think, and I have skipped over a lot of what I would consider to be boilerplate. Staff has negotiated this agreement with an eye toward the fact that we've got a parking environment in town that needs to be closely monitored, and the next item on the agenda really is that. We were careful in trying to find something that would work for both the city and for the developer. And we think the background is important. They proceeded with their development under the assumption that we would get to this point and do this, and the letter of intent certainly indicates that we will. And so, with that, I would recommend approval and stand for any questions you have.
Good. Thank you so much. Okay, so questions? From the first, Councilor Stoddard?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Hilty, after last night's Urban Renewal Agency meeting, is this tied together with that, for lack of better words, downsizing of Monos and the Tillian project and all, that whole, lack of better words, mess, but...
There is no overlap between this agreement and a Mono.
Okay.
We can start there. If I follow your question correctly, this has to do with the Tillian, the apartment complex, and the commercial spaces below it.
Okay, so it is separate from...
It's separate
anything
from
to
our
do with
discussion
Mono.
about... Yes, there's no overlap here.
Okay. And the other question I had was, when you said they'll reimburse the city if they use the parking garage, actual cost of each stall, or just whatever the rental we decide to do on each of those parking spaces?
The agreement provides, and this has to do with parking generally, right? So whether it's in the structure or after 20 years when they have to pay for parking, it would be prevailing rates. So whatever we're charging the public is what they would be
Okay,
paying.
but it wouldn't be the actual cost of each parking space, though, then, is that correct?
Correct, just the parking fees.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, other questions? Councilor Register, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I have a lot of questions. Part of the reason I have so many questions is because obviously this has been kind of, parking has been such a hot topic online. So there's a lot of people with questions and concerns, so I want to make sure I have it right. So the 138 spaces that we're talking about, they also have a certain amount of spaces inside their building, right? So that 138 is additional to what they already have inside, not, right, something extra?
That's correct. The 138 was a calculation that took into consideration all of the parking that they currently have on site.
Okay.
So there was a certain number that they were looking for total.
So it was 138 plus whatever they have inside-ish.
Yeah, the way to look at it was they looked at their total parking needs for their development and subtracted what they had on site.
Right. Okay.
And so this represents the balance.
Okay. And so then, so I was going to ask about the parking garage, but you kind of answered that. But just so we're clear, that if the city moves them into the parking garage, then they still get to park for free. But if they request to move in there, then they have to pay for it.
Correct.
So if they request to move into the parking garage and then have to pay for it, does it change anything else in this agreement?
Yes.
Do they still have the permits, or we go back and renegotiate?
Whether the city moves them or they move, it's a one-for-one modification, right? So if we take 10 spaces from their permit pool and put them into the structure, then the number of off-site, the number of spaces we're talking about tonight would also reduce.
Okay. And then, let's see. Okay, so my other question is about the 7th and Main lot, next to them where they were gonna put the hotel, and then now they're gonna use that as parking? Is that correct?
No. That is unresolved, what's gonna happen there.
Okay, because one thing that we talked about when we were approving the hotel and taking away the parking at TVCC was that we were going to be able to use the parking spots at 7th and Main, and it was kind of a wash, right? So are we in jeopardy now of losing the parking lot at 7th and Main for the community and not the project?
So the current status of that is, under the development agreement, they are obligated to build a hotel there. That remains the case today.
Mm-hmm.
They've asked for relief from that. The agency has agreed in concept that there could be relief from building a hotel. At the presentation where they asked for relief, there was at least a passing indication that they would give that property back to the agency, and that has formed the basis of the concepts that we've talked about and developed regarding parking at that site. Would be developed by the city. I found out last week that they don't necessarily intend to give that property back. That they may want to build something else there and seek some sort of approval for an alternate. It's the best I can tell you. When I found out, I asked for them to meet with me and discuss that, and that didn't happen. So all I can tell you is that hotel site is not available for parking.
Okay. Okay, so that's that. And then, so I kind of like in the beginning of your presentation, so just so I'm clear, so the permits that they get for the apartments or the project there, they have to park in those lots. It's not street parking, right?
Yeah, correct. I don't.
Their permits won't work on the street unless they pay the meter.
Correct.
Okay.
I think they could pay, and abide by those rules, but they are not entitled to use their permit to park on the street.
Okay. And then when we had our parking workshop before, and we lessened the map, we made it smaller into the core, and then we were talking about having all that free parking up by the railroad tracks. Now, is that being taken away by this?
No. So
that's a different.
Yeah, and we'll get into that a little bit in the next agenda item, which is the agreement with the car park.
Okay.
But there's still concepts of free parking.
Okay. So then, and this is just a statement then, I think you've answered all my questions. I don't particularly like committing the city to something for 75 years. I think it's irresponsible, honestly. So is there any way around that? Like, why are we looking at 75 years? And then the other question they had was, did they already get this land for free to get them to come over here, and now we're giving them free parking for 20 years? Like, I don't know that Caldwell necessarily needs to buy people anymore to come in. So can we say no?
Let me unpack that a little bit. The project was a redevelopment project, and they acquired it for its reuse development, which was $0. And so we could talk about what redevelopment means. It's misleading to say they got it for free. They got the property. They were obligated to invest their $40 million, which they've done. That represents a significant benefit to downtown and to the city long term. The part of the incentive was to provide parking, and that evolved out of a mutual negotiation on an evolving site plan. The agency was interested in the project, but not interested in investing $15 million in an on-site parking structure, and that really created the need for this project to have some parking. And so that's how it evolved. We have understood, going back to the time that the city signed the letter of intent, that this was going to be part of the deal, and it was important for them, for their financing.
So I understand that part. So in that original deal, or whatever they had been working off of, did that then say 75 years and all of that? So if we say no, then what happens?
I don't know. I suspect that we could see some litigation.
Okay. It just, I guess it pains me a little bit that if they're not communicating with you on what you've asked them to do as far as the land that they have, that they were going to make a hotel, then they weren't, and now they won't talk to you, and they won't give it back, and they won't do this, but we need to fulfill our side. And I'm wondering, is there some kind of timeline on this that we have to approve it right now, or can we wait until the rest of that's ironed out?
That's a fair question. I'm bothered by it too. They've been pretty good to work with. We may have a little dust up here, And generally in terms of legal rights, disputes, those types of things, I would want to share that with you in an executive session and provide legal advice concerning those kinds of things, not on the record. But I will say that I think looking at this situation holistically, I think this is a step that the city should take. I think we should follow through on that letter of intent.
So is there a timeline to do it tonight, or can we table it and have an executive meeting with you to get some of those other questions answered that we might need to get answered?
I think that they're planning, and Stephen probably knows this, and we can have him come up. I think they're planning on opening in November. And so they're at the point where they need to have some certainty on this. Stephen, do you have any? Yeah, okay. And I didn't see anybody from the Chase here tonight. So, we can't ask them. I know that it's fairly urgent.
Councilor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Hilty, obviously this is something that has a lot of moving parts to it. So forgive me if I try to boil it down to the cookies on the bottom shelf, because we all agree that there's parking issues and we're working on them. We're actively working on them at so many different levels and in so many different facets that it will be resolved. But it occurs to me that we have, between the city at our level, the city council, and the agency, entered into an agreement with these people. And so again, to just make it simple for me, it sounds like the best thing for us to do tonight is just stick to our agreement, not modify that. But if we would just follow what we've already said and approve this tonight, we've not done anything different. We've not added to it. We've not taken anything away. And that, as I said a couple of weeks ago, our yes needs to be yes. So between council and the agency, we're just going to consider tonight sticking to our agreement. And so if I'm not misunderstanding you, that would be my recommendation, in spite of the complexities that we'll continue to work on and solve. But for tonight, unless I'm misunderstanding you, what we want to do is just agree to stick to what we've already said we would do, which is what staff is proposing here tonight. Am I oversimplifying it?
No, I think you said it just right. And we will do as staff, and I guess primarily speaking on behalf of my office, move forward to move the city and the agency where they want to go, where they need to be, what's in the best interest of the city, without having a big blow up in a fight. That's my course of action. There will be discussions with this developer about the future of that hotel site.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Stodic.
Mark, you talk about living up to our obligations. Initially, they didn't live up to theirs, did they?
They have sought relief from that hotel phase.
Okay.
It's not been
I want to
finalized.
make sure the council members are clear with that. The other question I have, you said they're going to open up in November. What are they opening up besides parking?
My understanding is it's phase one, so it'd be their apartments, and then, Stephen, I don't know, do they have any commercial? Okay, with users? Yeah, so there'll be 7,900 square feet of users, of commercial development opening on the first floor, and then their apartments.
Okay, and that's guaranteed that they will do that, not like the Aztec people? We have that in writing? Okay. I just want to make clear that, again, what Councilor Williams said was accurate, but again, they didn't live up to their initial agreement with us either, so I don't know what the legal problems are in that, but that's why we need to have that meeting, so.
I agree.
Are there questions from any council members? Yes, Councilor Allgood.
Mr. Hildy, just need a clarification here. We keep using the number 138 for parking spaces, but without the hotel, it should be 105. Am I correct?
That's the number they gave us, yes.
So are we approving 105 spaces tonight or 138?
That's, I think, up to the council. I think 105 makes sense. It would require some amendments to this. If you do that, I would just simply ask that you authorize the mayor to sign it after we've made those corrections so that we can just keep it moving forward.
I'm panicking a little bit, knowing that Winter Wonderland is coming next month, and downtown is full for a few months, and we're blocking off, and I'm also panicking about the idea that if that parking lot fills up, who's out there issuing parking tickets or controlling that? You know, that's going to be a major task in itself.
Yep.
And then, there is quite a lot of work to be done figuring out pieces of parking, because we're counting on the same parking spots along there for a number of things. And so, you have your work cut out for you. But, yeah, Winter Wonderland initially is going to be our big concern, I believe, is getting through that and making sure that all our visitors have a place to park while they're down here.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor Richter.
I guess I just want to say, like, as we're considering this, that it would be a lot more easier to digest if they had come back at that 7th and Main and said, yes, we're going to work with you. Here's what it is. So then we know we have parking there for our community. Instead of them not answering you or having a meeting with you or having any kind of direction as to what's going on, other than now they're promising something else, which concerns me, because we're counting on having that, you know, for parking, and then we're saying, hey, not only are we gonna, you guys are gonna keep that, maybe you'll do something, because they've already said they were gonna do something and didn't do it, but now we're gonna give you even more parking after you've not done what you said you were gonna do. Like, you know, do you see where I'm going with this? And so I feel, I mean, I understand that you're up against them opening, but I'm still going to ask that we table it until we can have an executive meeting and talk about all the circumstances of it.
Okay. Other questions or discussion? Okay, very good. Anything else, Mark, before we?
No, I just, in response to your comments, Councilor Register, yeah, we're in an awkward spot, and sometimes big deals get to awkward spots. We will work through it, I'm cautiously optimistic that we will get where we want to go. But your comments are well taken.
Yeah, very good.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor,
Yeah,
I just want to be clear, though, because time is of the essence. If you could, give me a scenario where we could get out of this and still satisfy some of the other concerns of the council, because I want to be sure we're not in breach of something. But if we were to table this and move into an executive session, worst case scenario, we'd have to have a, special meeting and add a meeting to this, in order to approve this resolution. Is that accurate?
That's correct, yeah. Yeah, I would, if you're really uncomfortable acting tonight, you know, I would certainly want you to act on it probably before your next council meeting.
Well, I don't know that I'm uncomfortable. I'm just trying to weave a path here, because as I said, I think if what staff is presenting to us is a document that says this is what we agreed to, even if we amended it to the 105, if we just stick to what we've agreed to, we would not be in breach, and then you and the Urban Renewal District continue to work to finalize what is yet unfinished, because they still have time. I mean, not that they would, but if they decided today, okay, we're going to go ahead and build the hotel, they could do that, because they're not beyond the breach of their time on that document. And so I'm trying not to hem us into something where we've created a place of poor standing.
Agree. And I think the way forward is to approve the spaces that they need for the hotel, for the apartment phase, for phase one.
And kind of, you'd mentioned about if the council does move forward tonight, what Councilor Allgood was talking about, the 105 spaces could be amenable rather than the 138, and then just allowing me and you to work through what those 105 spaces are. Is that correct as one option as well?
It is. That is correct, right? And this would have been a nice discussion to have with them. The 138 comes out of the LOI. The LOI is based on the project, including both phases. And we do have a breakdown, the numbers that they provided us, for each phase. So now, if they build a hotel, we can amend this agreement and add the spaces, right? I mean, I would recommend that we do that. All we know right now is they're not planning to do that hotel.
Can they hold on to that lot and not do anything?
I think the answer to that is no.
They have to
No.
build something.
They're contractually obligated to build a hotel right now.
Oh.
Okay, any other questions?
No, Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion as challenging as this is. I've said before, there are times when we have to trust staff, and I think this is one of those times where I'm hearing you and saying, as much as there are components of this that I'm not happy about, my happiness is not what I'm aiming for here. I have to ask myself, what's best for the city of Caldwell? And so I believe that in your analysis of this, I need to follow your lead. And so I'm going to make a motion and see if there is a second that comes from it. But I'll move that we accept staff's recommendation to approve this parking agreement with the exception of amending it to the 105, given that they're not building a hotel, and authorize the mayor and staff to iron that out and sign it as needed.
Okay, very good. So do we have a motion? Do we have a second? So we have a motion from Councilor Williams and a second from Councilor McGee. And again, this is for approval of this resolution regarding the execution of a parking use and location agreement with Seventh and Main Investment LLC, with caveat that it be for the 105 parking spaces in lieu of the, was it 136? Or 138, okay, in lieu of the 138. So that is the motion. So before we do open it up for voting, any discussion on that motion?
I want to say something.
Okay.
I do appreciate that, what you, Councilor William is saying about this, contract and doing what's best for the city, but I still feel like we're here to vote and to do the things that are best for the community. And so that's where I stand with it, for the citizens, the people.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much. Any other discussion? Okay, with that, then voting will be open. All votes are cast, the voting is closed, and that does pass with 3 in favor, 2 in opposition. So those two, for those that are at home listening, so Councilor Stoddard and Councilor Richards did vote against the resolution, and Councilor Williams, Councilor Allgood, and Councilor McGee did vote for it. So it does pass with a vote of 3-2. So that does close and end action item number 2 and moves us into action item number 3. Might as well keep going with parking. So this is consider a resolution authorizing the execution of an operating agreement with the car park for parking management services in downtown Caldwell. Mr. Hilty, we're getting your money's worth out of you tonight. That's
Mayor,
good.
I'm going to have parking dreams tonight, I think.
Or nightmares, or maybe
Yes,
some
or
of both.
nightmares, perhaps. No, this one is, it has been, I think, I can speak for all, Mayor, I think it's been you and me and Stephen primarily interacting with the car park. That's a professional group of folks. They know their stuff, and that was a nice selection, and that negotiation has gone well, and it's unnerving in some ways to be in those meetings when you're talking to people who know so much about parking, when your team doesn't really know anything about parking. And they'll ask us questions like, what's the fee going to be? And, where, how many spaces, and where do you want this kind of meter and that kind of meter? And we're working our way through it. But that's a good segue into this operations agreement that you have before you. It's unusual in that there are some real nuts and bolts types of things that need to be worked out in the near term. And I guess speaking for myself, what I am learning as we get into this is that this relationship with your parking operator is a very dynamic relationship. And by that I mean where you park people and whether it's a permit and how much you're going to charge and how long they are going to be able to stay there. and then, further, what kind of device you use. And I'm learning that there are single meters for single spaces and double heads and multiple meters for multiple spaces and kiosks, and they know that kind of thing, and we're working through it. But all of those things can be variable as you go, right? You've got parking objectives that you're trying to achieve with paid parking, and there is a revenue component to it, but there's more going on there than that. It's the moving of vehicles around and making spaces available for people who come down and want to shop, and not making parking a burden. And so we have before you tonight sort of a high-level agreement that outlines who's responsible for what. And then in there you will see, in fact, paragraph 1A, the purpose of this agreement is to effectuate a parking management plan to be appended to this agreement as attachment 1 within 90 days. So it's not lost on me, right, the fact that we're approving an agreement, the purpose of which is to implement another agreement that we don't have. But it bear with me as we go through it. It does make sense. But do the same thing, I think, in terms of presenting this agreement to you that I did with the last one, which is to hit what I think are the high points. I know you've had a chance to look at it. I'll stand for any questions that you have. Initially, this is going to require ordinance amendments, we think. There is some work that I'm doing on that. That'll come back to you in the next few weeks. There are some simple changes that need to be done in order to authorize this group to enforce parking, which is one of their responsibilities, including the permitted parking. Somebody asked about that during the last agenda item. And then it looks like probably we need a little bit more comprehensive review of our parking ordinances. Now, we may try to take that down in one fell swoop. We may break it down and do something simple to get them going, and then follow up with a more detailed review. That's kind of still in process. If you would, you've got the exhibit up. Thanks, Emmanuel. So I passed out to you. What you're seeing on there is the exhibit that went out in your packet. What I passed out to you is slightly revised with respect to that Main Street lot. What you're seeing on the screen and was in your packet, that Main Street lot includes that hotel site we were just discussing. It's now apparent that that's not going to be available in the immediate future. And so the exhibit that I passed out to you that you had by your computers shows a slight adjustment to that Main Street lot. The good news is, on last night, the Urban Renewal Agency approved a modification to the Amano development, and they are going to occupy less of that space than they originally intended. And so there's a portion of the site that was under contract with Amano that now has been sort of released from that contract with an adjustment of the footprint. So there's still going to be a Main Street lot. It's going to be perhaps a little bit smaller than what's depicted there, and it's going to be shifted a little bit to the west. But that's the only difference between those exhibits, and I wanted to point that out. The rest of the exhibits, then, there's a key there that shows, sort of where there would be metered parking, free parking, and then, of course, the permit-only parking along the UP lot. The initial term just gets us through October 2024. And again, that's part of this thing being dynamic. We're going to learn a lot, I think, as a city about parking in the next few months, and we will need to have the flexibility to make some changes to that. So we have initially a short term here. There are some extensions. I've got every confidence that we're going to be happy with the service of this provider, but we're not married to them long term, and we'll see how it goes. And so I want to let you know initially there's a relatively short term here. All right, moving on, it speaks about generally what the operations are, and there is a very detailed and comprehensive list of all of the services that they're going to provide in monitoring, operating, collecting revenue, accounting for revenue, enforcing parking violations, customer service, issuing permits, monitoring all that. That's really their wheelhouse, and that's where they know their stuff, and they're going to be able to take care of that stuff. But again, that's generally, when it comes to paid parking, it will be their responsibility in downtown to monitor that. They can assign some of that responsibility to subcontractors, but if it's a $5,000 contract or more, they will need to get approval from the city. And then the real guts, I think, of the nuts and bolts of parking are going to be set forth in what they call a parking facilities annual program. And so the way that this is going to work is at budget time, they will come forward with financial reports about what kind of revenue is being generated by your parking facilities on a lot-by-lot basis. So you can make informed decisions about whether the designation for timeframes need to be changed, or the prices need to be increased, or the prices need to be decreased. You can add in new lots. You can take lots offline. It's a dynamic, as I said, dynamic relationship that could change year to year. And so each year, based on primarily the financial data, but there's also going to be data collected over parking capacity. You know, how full are these lots? How full are which lots? You know, where are there continuing problems, and how can we address those? So every year, we'll be taking another look at this at the staff level to determine how we can improve parking in the downtown. The city sets the hours for which paid parking would be required. The city sets the fees. The maintenance and repair obligations are initially, the day-to-day maintenance is the responsibility of the operator. Striping, cleaning, landscaping, trash removal, those types of things. Major maintenance, of course, would be a city responsibility as it currently is. They will account monthly for the parking revenue that's generated. There will be developed, there are some at Section 307 on page 9, performance requirements and assessments. So we'll have objective criteria to evaluate the car park's performance under the agreement. There's a lengthy definition of operating costs, and so the costs that they incur for operating, of course, are a city responsibility. And they're going to have to hire employees. Of course, there's going to be equipment, there's going to be maintenance on that equipment, and uniforms and vehicles and all the stuff that goes along with that. That's a budgetary item for the city, so the city will work up a budget for what their operating costs will be. And then, of course, the hope is that the revenue off of parking is sufficient to pay the operating costs. It may or may not prove to be a moneymaker. That's really not the intent. The intent is that we can better manage parking and parking access downtown and have enough fees to pay for the costs of doing that. All right. My apologies on Exhibit B, which probably was important to you because that's how much this is going to cost us, and there are blanks in it. The monthly fee is $3,500. And there's a space in there for a performance bonus of $4,200 based on how they perform against those performance criteria that I was just talking about. So we certainly will fill in Exhibit B with the $3,500 per month as the management fee, and then the up to $4,200 at the end of the term based on their performance.
And that's just above and beyond, correct? Like they're hitting whatever the allocation that's believed for the city, and if it gets better than that, increase from that, that's when that goes up, correct, on that performance bonus?
Yeah, I think Mayor, a component of it is revenue. But you know, if we set the parking fee at 25 cents an hour, right? I mean, they don't control that fee structure. We control the fee structure, which is the way it should be. And so they can do a great job. If the revenue's not there, you know, we can look at that as a city, but they may earn their bonus. I think it's a factor among others, right? Customer, you know, professionalism and customer satisfaction and accuracy and, you know, that kind of stuff. Performing the agreement within the timelines they're supposed to perform it. There's other stuff there. All right. I think the rest of this is sort of what I would refer to as boilerplate provisions. We've got an amended Exhibit A, and I would stand for questions.
Okay, thank you so much. Any questions from council? Councilor
Mr. Mayor.
Register.
Just out of curiosity, so if we're paying them $3,500 a month, do you know what our potential revenue is?
No.
Has that ever been figured out? Like, how many spaces are we metering?
The projected, on the original, if I remember right, so the original net that we would receive is 600 and something thousand a year.
A year.
Mhm. From what I remember, that's the net, so that's after paying that fee to them and the other costs that are associated with it. That was the net, if I remember correct, was right, $600-something thousand. Is that right, Steve?
Steven's got the estimates. Yeah.
Documents, Mayor, Council, good evening. Yes, Mayor, the number that you were referencing is, I'm looking at the proposal that they provided to us, during the RFP process that closed on August 16th, and it says $613,794 is the, projected revenue.
After we pay them all of our charges, fees, whatever, the city's looking at netting that.
So, Mayor, Council, Councilwoman Register, it says, total expenses to the client, us as a city, $490,000, and then the revenue would be $613,000, so it would be deducted from that total revenue.
And that's assuming that those are parked in every day and for every hour that it's open, I'm guessing.
I think the assumptions are based on cities that are comparable to us in terms of their clientele that they work with across the country. So they just analyzed how much they anticipated the cost would be.
But they took into consideration that we would be having free days and free hours.
Yeah, I believe so, and I can give you just a document that may be helpful in this discussion, and I apologize for not providing this earlier, but
Okay, I mean, you can, but I just wanted to make sure that we're making money off of it and it's not, all going to the car park.
Sure, absolutely. And this document just refers to, it's a grid that shows how much the hourly rate is projected to be, as well as the daily rate, that corresponds with some of those lots that are depicted in Exhibit A. So I just wanted to pass these around.
Yeah, and so just kind of touched on that while Steve passes that. So yes, it did take into consideration the free days, that parking isn't 24/7. It doesn't take into account 100%, because actually, they say you don't want 100%. You need to have some empty spaces, that turnover on that. So, ideal is really a 75-80% capacity is what you want for those parking. And then the money that is generated, I know some people are like, the city's just trying to make more money. Really, the goal is for again, that $600,000, whatever it is, ends up being that the net that the city is able to gain from this is now that is used to do improvements in the downtown. You saw the picture of that one lot Mr. Hilty showed, that was just ugly, for no better word, that just had cars kind of parked anywhere and everywhere. Now, instead of using the taxpayer dollars to go and improve that lot, now we can use this money to go and improve that lot. So it's kind of basically it's a user-based fee. People that are using the parking, so that's the goal, right? The people that are using the parking in downtown, now we can use that money to improve it rather than, coming out of the general taxpayer dollar is kind of the goal for that. So that's what that money will be used for, is improvements into the downtown parking.
And then some of this was changed from the proposal. So instead of 20 minutes, we're looking at 15 minutes free. And then instead of $1.50, $1. And then, the hours are 9 to 7. I think we originally talked about 9 to 5 or something like that, but it doesn't have the free days on here.
So Sunday and holidays are free. All handicap parking is free as well. And we did another walkabout. One of my favorite movies, Crocodile Dundee. Haven't seen that in a while, but we did a walkabout. And kind of looking at where do we need, because that was one of the things we got from the open house, is we want to see more handicap parking in downtown. So on that walkabout, we looked at areas where we could put in some additional handicap spots downtown. And those would be, obviously, need the placard. And the nice thing is, with the associated fees on there, they are providing the employees that are monitoring this. They're doing, if there are citations, they're taking care of all of that. So now it enhances this. I know that I have a good friend that is in a wheelchair and he's handicapped, and he's had multiple issues of trying to get into handicap spots downtown, where people either are parking in it and don't have the handicap placard, or they're parking in a way where he can't access it with his van accessible, situation. And so now we have somebody that'll be not only monitoring the parking, but that as well. And so we're going to be able to get that extra enforcement downtown for those handicap spots too. So it's kind of a win there as well.
Okay, but can we talk about why we took away a free day and why there's less time in the evening that's free than we talked about on the original proposal?
Yes, Councilwoman Register, this is just proposed. This is based on the conversations we had most recently with the car park team, and these are subject to change, so these are,
So, sorry, are we deciding on this tonight or just the agreement, right? Okay, never mind, we don't need to talk about it right now.
absolutely. Yeah, I just wanted to give you this just for points of reference,
Okay,
to give you an understanding of
Thank
what
you.
we may anticipate for downtown parking.
so tonight we're just talking about the agreement with Car Park, and then we can still sort this out later. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, Councilor Register, just to be clear, we talked about there's a parking management plan, there's an annual plan. That's where those sorts of nuts and bolts are going to be worked out. What the agreement simply says is, city gets to decide those things.
Okay.
So that'll be coming back to you this fall at some point, so with all that detail.
Thank you.
Did you have a question, Councilor Williams?
Just out of curiosity, so they enforce it, but what are the penalties, if they ticket somebody for staying over? What kind of citation is that? And, who actually enforces that penalty?
It's a civil infraction, and it's a collections issue, and they're responsible as part of their operations for pursuing collections.
And the council determines what that fee would
Yeah,
be,
yeah, right.
correct?
All-
Whatever that is.
The council would have a policy, that's gonna be, that's what we need to look at in terms of the ordinance amendments, to make sure that we've established those.
Who receives the fee?
I think it's just revenue, it's just gross revenue.
Councilor Stoddard?
Yes, Mayor.
Yeah.
Mark, is there a performance template you're gonna use on this relative to whether they perform or don't perform? And then which department of the city is gonna be responsible for that?
I can handle the first, well, I think I can answer those. Yes, there are performance criteria that can be worked out in detail. There are some initial performance criteria in the agreement, and I mentioned it, I probably didn't go into detail there, but yes, there's a performance criteria for them. The city and mayor, this is where I'm gonna probably need your help. I know we're hiring for, the city will have, sort of an employee tasked with being, the city side person that monitors and enforces the agreement, and then is a primary contact for the car park as we get into it. I can't remember, it's identified as the manager, quote unquote, in this agreement. I think we have a different title.
So it'll fall under with our parking compliance, position within our planning and zoning department. So kind of helps, I know, we do have Captain Rosen here, so I know Chief Ingram's out of town at a conference, but, should help alleviate some of the issues there. I know Sylvia, who's with the police department, she's the one that kind of does the parking right now, and I know she's run pretty thin on that, so it'll kind of help to alleviate and relieve that, where, again, that parking compliance position will be in the planning and zoning department in the code enforcement section, and kind of overseeing that, that's who they'll report to. So it ultimately falls under the code enforcement in the planning and zoning department.
Thank you.
Councilor Allgood.
Yeah, that was one of my questions. As Mr. Hilty said, this is pretty dynamic. It sounds to me like we would need somebody with some authority making day-to-day decisions to make sure things are going correctly, or is that what you have in mind for this parking compliance officer?
Yeah, so they'll be reporting to them, kind of seeing, how things are going. And yeah, that's where those code amendments coming in will give that authority to be able to, like I said, if there is a ticket that needs to be issued, that can do that. Like I said, it's a civil action. It's something, it's not a sworn officer or anything like that, but, there'll be that constant contact, checking in, kind of seeing how everything's going on that. But yeah, that'd be that position within the planning and zoning department.
So, if I can continue?
Yeah.
I know nothing about parking, but it seems very optimistic to me. There was a description of the car park over a year's time the company would get 400,000 and change, and potential revenue to the city was 600,000 and change off of 89 meters. 89 meters is a pretty small number to me, and I was glancing over this way and I saw Ray Lynn's head going, so I think maybe she has some opinion on that. But so, and this can be worked out, I understand, but my concern is that if things do not, pardon the pun, meter out, we have to have a fund of some kind to pay our bills month to month. Ray Lynn, is that part I mean, have we discussed that? If revenues, because the way this agreement reads is, we get 100% of the gross, and then we pay their bill each month. And if that gross does not reach what we need, then we have to make that difference. Am I correct on that?
Correct. Correct.
And then maybe too, just jump into 89, so that's 89 multi-space meters. So for example, the TVCC lot that has over 100 parking spots would be covered with 3 multi-space meters. So those, basically, you don't have like a meter head at every spot, so it kind of cleans your street up so you don't have multiple meters.
This that Stephen passed out says 89 meters total, and it lists the difference, so that's what I was going by.
Yeah, so those are those multi-space that cover, like I said, usually a minimum of 6, and some like up to 20 or 25 spots are covered by one multi-space.
Yeah. Right, Counselor Allgood, these are estimates, and like I prefaced my comments with, we're gonna learn a lot in the next year.
Okay,
So.
all right, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Very good. Appreciate that, Mr. Hilty. So with that, if there's any discussion or if there are other questions for staff or any motions from council.
Just want to clarify one thing. This is just the initial agreement. We have a lot of work before we sign off on a final product. Is that correct?
That is correct. So this allows them to move to that next step. And then as mentioned, as far as the days, the times, the fees, the costs, that's still yet to be determined by council.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor Allgood.
I would make a motion that we support the agreement authorizing this initial agreement with Car Park for parking management.
Very good. So we do have a motion from Councilor Allgood for approval of, trying to get where I'm at, with the resolution, authorizing the execution of an operating agreement with the Car Park. Do we have a second? Second. So a motion from Councilor Allgood and a second from Councilor McGee. And this is for approval of this resolution. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, then voting is open. All votes are cast, and that motion does pass unanimously. And as mentioned, before too long, we'll have more information back before council. I imagine we'll have another workshop or two, or open house or two with the public as we can move forward in this direction as well. Okay, that moves us to action item number 5. Oh, sorry, action item number 4. Consider resolution authorizing the execution of a purchase and sale agreement associated with property located at 205 West Belmont Street in the amount of $517,125.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to turn this over to Norm Brown, who has assisted the city with acquisitions of property, including in this area, and have him walk you through, what's being acquired and the terms. Obviously, it's out there next to city shops, water department, I think, in particular, and so when the opportunity to acquire this space came on board, the city was certainly interested, looking toward the future expansion potentially at the water department. As you're aware, I think it's previously been discussed, so you should be familiar with this. This would be simply approving the actual purchase agreement. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mark. I'm Norm Brown with NAI Select Brown's Realty Consultants, and I've been mayor and council members. We worked on this, and I want to go over the purchase and sale agreement with you and then go into some other details. Like you said, the purchase and sale agreement was $517,500, I believe. Let me pull out my glasses. No, $517,125. We have earnest money on it at $10,000. We have 30 days due diligence. We can extend that due diligence another 30 days, putting up $1,000 non-refundable at the end of that 30 days. And we need to close not later than 30 days after that. So we've either got 60 days due diligence with a 30-day close after that, or 30 days due diligence with close 30 days after that. Does that make sense? I bargained with this guy that, the seller, that if he does not remove all his, he has a house on it, but it's not on a foundation, it's a trailer. and he wants to move that, then he has to remove all personal property. So there'll only be stuff that's on a foundation. That includes a garage and a shop. That's it. Everything else has to be removed out, or he does not get back the $20,000 that we are withholding on him, okay? By the date on this, May 1st, I believe. Let me just double check that. But yes, May 1st, okay? Does all that make sense so far? Everybody good with that? Okay, so we acquired the 6 acres next to him to the south. Do you remember that purchase? Everybody good with that? And then that borders the Veterans. Then we went across the street, and we also, next to the water facility there, that's the 6 acres. Then we also purchased that, and this is going to be where, you know, I believe the maintenance is going to go. I wanted to give you are you guys, any questions on this, first of all, on this purchase and sale?
Maybe real quick too, just so the property, it's this, I know we don't have it, this property right here.
Correct.
On that.
It's 1.25 acres. Comes out to $9.50 a square foot. Okay. I'm going dirt value on that. Any questions at all?
Any questions?
On the purchase? That was kind of our long-term goal. When we purchased the 6 acres to the south, we rate-rated the deal. We got a savings on that of $300,000. We are probably, so I took that money, part of it, and put it towards the purchase of this. And I've got a spreadsheet I want to give all of you guys. So when we're in the commercial real estate world, we're out buying property. It's by the square foot. That's kind of how you determine values. Mark, I'll give you one of these. So when we acquired 105 and 107 Belmont, there were 3 parcels on that for a total of a little over 6 acres. There was 280,962 square feet. We purchased that for $1.5 million. That price per square foot came out at $534. Okay, everybody on board with that?
And that's the one that you were able to renegotiate, correct?
Yep. We originally put it under contract at 1.8. We closed on it at 1.5. Okay? Then we're right now working on 205 Belmont that's adjacent to it and adjacent to the Veterans Memorial. It's 1.25 acres. It's 54,450 square feet. Purchase price on it's $517,125. That's $9.50 a square foot. Okay? Everybody following that? So when you're assimilating pieces of property, I think you have to go total cost, what it's costing you, not just for one, but for the whole assimilation. So we now have over there for the city 7.7 acres. It's all in one group. There's 335,412 square feet for a total of $2,017,125. The price on that, if you approve this tonight, total will be $6.01. Any questions?
Any questions with council on any of that?
No. Mr. Mayor, how does that relate to regular commercial property that you're involved with now, per square foot?
That is a very good question. I wanted to address that. Let me give you some comps, if this would be a comp. If you go to Sky Ranch, the most recent, least expensive purchase was $10.50 a foot.
And I think that probably wouldn't be a very good comparison in my book.
So you get, what you have to do on the comparables, you have to give discount based on location, right? So it's 30, this is 40% less. What do you think on that?
No.
Okay.
That's all right, just my opinion. Go ahead.
No, that's good. I think this is an excellent price. It's very, very hard to find industrial ground at $6 a square foot. Very difficult. Industrial ground and apartment ground are the two hottest commercial markets there are right now. Apartments haven't slowed down, industrial has not slowed down.
Was there a question? Did I see a hand over here?
Well, let me give you another comparable, okay? So when we bought the 3 acres across from the water, we paid $7 a square foot. That's directly across the street.
Is that this one here?
Yep. Is that better for you, Chuck?
A little, yeah.
Okay.
If you consider location, city services and all that stuff, that's, you know.
If you asked me to put it on the market,
Yeah.
I think I could do very well with that.
Thank you.
Does that answer it better?
Yeah.
Councilor Elgis?
So, nothing for nothing, but, considering that we bought the pieces right next to it for, $5.34 a square foot, was there something about this particular parcel that made that at $9.50 a foot? I mean, other than just the owner wanting that number, or how did we arrive? Was there something there that made that more valuable than?
It doesn't make it more valuable. It's, do you want to put it all together? Because it's really hard to get people to sell. So we took a savings on the big parcel and put it into acquiring that small one. There's nothing on it that makes it more valuable. It's very similar to the ground next to it. It's just when you got to get the little chunks, the last ones, to sell out, it's harder, right?
Any other questions?
Any other questions, you guys?
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much, Norm. Appreciate you
Okay.
being here and all your work.
My
on this
pleasure.
one. Yep.
Working for you guys.
Okay, so, again, this is action item number 4. Consider resolution authorizing the execution of a purchase and sale agreement for this property located at 205 West Belmont for the amount of $517,125. So any discussion from council or any questions for staff or any motions?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor
I'm
Williams.
prepared to make a motion, but before we do, Mr. Doty can't speak, but if he could, he'd say, Raylyn, where's the money? Now, we had an executive session as is appropriate before, but now we're in public, and so everyone needs to hear that. So could you please address that for us?
I can definitely address. So if I recall, this is, we're gonna purchase out of fire impact fees. Is that what the discussion was, Mayor?
Yeah, I believe that was correct, and the thought was, because the fire, I don't know if we could go back to the aerial, as a potential site for a new fire station, maybe zoom out just a little bit. So I'll go up here, over in this location here. So this is currently owned by the water department. Water department is low in their fund balance. So this would, again, still the bond to go forward in November on that, but this, discussing with Chief Frawley, is a pretty good site for a fire station. You got good access to Centennial Way, to the freeway, or to Simplot. You got quick access downtown. And so, you can't, even cities, you can't just give land from one agency or one department to another. There has to be that trade, right? So the thought was, if again, that money was utilized for here, then you would have that trade of that land for that land. And again, you'd look at the price as well, so there may be some cash that needs to go along with that as well from the water department to the fire department, because, you know, it's obviously for them, they're not trying to get a piece together with all the others, so that would also count into it also. But then that would be the purchase of that from the fire fund, but then the trade of those properties for the new fire station, and most likely some cash as well that'll go along with it.
Yeah. So currently, the fire impact fund does have enough fund balance to cover this purchase. And, and also, do all future obligations for the 2024 budget. So I don't see an issue with it, so.
Okay, thank you. Given that, Mayor, I move that we approve the resolution to authorize the execution of the purchase and sale agreement for 205 West Belmont.
Very good. Do we have a second? So we have a motion from Councilor Williams, a second from Councilor McGee. And this is for approval of the resolution which authorizes the execution of this purchase and sale agreement for the property at 205 West Belmont Street in the amount of $517,125. Is there any discussion on that motion?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor Stanek.
Just a reminder, I talked to Mr. Horton about that, and Mr. McDonald, regarding the Veterans Garden there, we always talked about a throughway, so they don't have to go all the way around to the garden. Is that still in the process of being executed?
Correct, Mr. Mayor, Councilman Stoddard. There's a plan to have a direct connection road coming off of Chicago, immediately adjacent to the parking lot of the water department, so that people have access back to the Veterans Garden, and then it will feed into the properties that are being purchased for water department uses, and that would eliminate the need to go all the way around and back on that dirt road.
Okay, so I can tell Mr. Pugmire we'll have a throughway there for the Veterans Garden?
We will at some point, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, very good. So that motion is before you, and voting is open at this time. All votes are cast, so voting is closed, and that motion passes unanimously. That moves us on to action item number 5, bill number 47, orders number 3541, for meeting dates for Caldwell Historic Preservation Commission. Are you doing, or is Mark, we really are getting our money out of you tonight. I love it. Okay, but that doesn't mean you have to take long on this.
I know, I was gonna make some wisecrack about how this is a parking ordinance, but it's not.
That's about parking.
Pretty straightforward ordinance here. We're just, the boards and commissions and meeting times are set by ordinance. There's a desire to change the Historic Preservation Commission meeting from the second to fourth Mondays at 6 to the first to third Mondays at 6:30. I apologize for bringing such controversial items before you on the eve of an election, but such is the job you signed up for. I will stand for questions.
Okay, very good. Any questions for Mr. Hilty?
No, I'm just kidding.
I have you list.
Take up most of the time. Kidding,
Okay.
no questions.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. So again, this is a bill and ordinance, amending that chapter, pertaining to meeting dates of the Caldwell Historic Preservation Commission. And so I stand for a motion, for approval of that bill and
So
ordinance.
moved.
And a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Councilor Register for sponsorship of bill number 47, ordinance number 3541. Request to move for its passage by title only, and a second from Councilor Stoddard. Any discussion on that motion?
I think Councilor Register should say all the right words rather than just.
Short and sweet, nothing wrong with that. So, okay, that voting is open. And voting is closed as all votes are tallied, and that passes unanimously. That moves us to, keep up, we're moving so quick tonight, I almost can't keep up. Action item number 6, bill number 48, ordinance 3542, amending chapter 2, article 37, changing the meeting dates of the Caldwell Design Review Commission.
Similar housekeeping measure. It's actually not changing the dates. I think it just changes it provides flexibility in location. So whereas those meetings those are set on an as-needed basis, there's not, I don't think, a need for design review to meet regularly. But when they set their meetings right now, the current code says they meet here in the community room, and I think there's just going to be some flexibilities where that meeting's located.
Okay, excellent. Any questions? Okay, very good. Thank you so much. Do we have a sponsor of bill number 49, ordinance number 3543? Oh, no, sorry. Bill number 48, ordinance number 3542.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
So we have a motion from Councilor Stoddard and a second from Councilor Register, for sponsorship of bill number 47, ordinance number 3541. And with that was a request to move for its passage by title only. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, with that, voting is open. 48, no, 47. It's trying to throw me off. Okay, 48, yeah, you're right. Okay, voting is closed, and that motion does pass unanimously. Okay. Now we're on to action item number 7, bill number 49, ordinance number 3543 for de-annexing a portion of property within the corporate city limits of the Caldwell Municipal Irrigation District. And since Brent Orton's name was mentioned earlier, I have to say this before I move on, because he always loved to say that this is pooling water rights. So is this draining water rights by doing this de-annexation? If you're listening, Brent, that was for you.
I know, I was sorry to see him go, but not because of his jokes, so,
Yes.
Mayor.
I would second that.
That's how I feel. I'm very fond of Brett, for the most part. This is, as you know, properties are annexed into the Caldwell Municipal Irrigation District from the underlying district for purposes of pooling resources. But here, there's a portion of property that would be de-annexed by its legal description that is owned by ITD as part of public right-of-way and certainly doesn't need irrigation. And so just best to have it de-annexed from any responsibility that CMID would have for it. That's what this ordinance does. I'd stand for questions.
Very good. Any questions? Okay, excellent. So again, that's bill number 49, ordinance number 3543, de-annexing a portion of property from the Caldwell Municipal Irrigation District. Do we have any motions for this bill and ordinance?
So moved.
And a second, and that's for approval?
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
And so we have a motion from Councilor Stoddard and a second from Councilor Register, for passage of bill number 49, ordinance number 3543, with a request to move for its passage by title only, and de-annexing those portions from the CMID. Any discussion? With that, voting is open. All votes cast, the voting is closed, and that passes unanimously. And that moves us to action item number 8, notice of a public hearing to be held on Tuesday, November 7th at 6 p.m. to consider an increase or creation of fees over 5% of that previously charged for the Caldwell Executive Airport.
I know you're really tired of fees, and I wish I didn't have to bring them for you, because I keep going through them, and I keep finding things that I need to bring forth on fees. So this is to set a public hearing for November 7th, so, because we were charging fees that were not actually on the fee sheet, so this is what those are. And then I did hear your comments on the lease rates, so it is fixing the lease rates to what you want, so.
Very good. So maybe just touch on that, and Raylene, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that. So we heard at the last meeting about concerns about lease rates going up when we were told, look, we're doing a big leak now, so we don't have to do anything next year. And as those were going through, our previous public works director did have just the standard increase that kind of goes across the board, which unfortunately grabbed the lease rate, so they actually did go up.
They did.
So this is reverting that, going back to where there is absolutely no increase on those lease rates for this year.
That is correct.
So,
And this will make them on the November 7th hearing effective for October 1st,
so retroactive, so it goes back, so. Okay, and again, this is just, creating or setting the notice for that public hearing, so no decision on that tonight, just setting the notice for the next city council meeting on November 7th. Do we have a motion? And a second?
Second.
So motion from Councilor McGee, second from Councilor Stoddard to set for notice of public hearing for Tuesday, November 7th, 2023. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion passes. That moves us into action item number 9. Consider resolution authorizing the purchase of Celebrite data extraction, analysis, and management software in the amount of $58,835 for use by the Caldwell Police Department. Captain Rosen, it's all yours.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council.
So is this why they didn't take you to San Diego? You gotta stay here and do this?
I got the heavy lift today. My presentation is brief and to the point. There's 3 things I want to cover today. We're asking to spend some money on technology for our duties, but it's bigger than that. Here's why I say that. With this purchase of Celebrite, who we've been using for some time to conduct forensic cell phone examinations on evidence related to our investigations, we're joining forces with the Nampa Police Department, and we're creating the Treasure Valley Forensic Examination Task Force. And we're actually splitting this technology and its cost with the Nampa Police Department. This is about $150,000 total. they're gonna foot the bill for an additional 20,000 more than what we're asking for out of this tonight. Additionally, we have already budgeted about $25,000 this fiscal year for software. So really, we're looking at an extra approximately $30,000 to make this happen. And really, our goal with this is we want to be the flagship agency to break down the silos of information that just occur naturally between agencies. We want to share the information that we get in our cases with each other to enhance our investigations, to implicate those who are guilty, but also to exonerate those who are innocent. And this is crucial because the amount of time, man hours it takes to look at these cell phone extractions I can't even describe it. Right now, it's a very laborious process. There's a lot of need for human input on saving data to a flash drive and physically putting it into evidence, where the hardware and software that's accompanying what's in this proposal tonight will streamline all that. Similarly to Axon, the evidence will be stored on the cloud, which alleviates any chance for human error, for lost data, lost evidence. So we really want to set the standard high because my tally was this year 70 cell phones we downloaded. And that's hundreds of thousands of pages of data and evidence. And we really need this. We really want to showcase the state of Idaho, the Treasure Valley. We're going to be the first agencies in the state to have the software. And it would really, really push us to the next level for our investigations. And that's the end of my presentation. Any questions?
Excellent. Thank you so much. Questions? Councilor McGee?
Thank you, Mayor and Captain. So give me a practical example of how this software would be used.
Great question. On the software side of the house, they released AI for how they can basically take multiple cell phone extractions. Let's say you have a case with 4 suspects, and you're looking to identify a timeline. Well, that would typically, if we did it the traditional way, take us hundreds of hours to map all that out. You'd have to look at each specific piece individually and put it together. With the AI, the computer does it for us. It takes a look at relationships. It builds timelines. It pulls out the important stuff for us to look at. It's really, really amazing. It's called a Pathfinder.
Councilor Williams?
Mr. Mayor, Captain, I think it's important for everyone to know, though, that not everyone in the department is trained and able to do the download currently. And so when you talk about those thousands of hours, really it only falls on, I'm thinking it's a couple of people. So this would be a big deal as far as time savings and human resource appropriation. Am I wrong?
The time-saving piece there is huge. My background, I'm a certified forensic cell phone examiner. I've testified as an expert in local and federal court regarding this work. I did it for a long time in homicide investigations and all the types of investigations. And I can tell you that being responsible for this work is crucial. Having any extra tool we can to get it done the right way is crucial to save time and to be efficient and to be on point with our cases.
Any other questions?
Yes,
Councilor. All good.
I'll be the pain. So downloading cell phones have the capacity to hold so much data now, which means that data will be stored by this company that we're having an agreement with. So there will be an ongoing bill annually for this company. Do you have a rough idea what that will be?
So my understanding with this proposal is this is just a contract. There is no hardware, there's no recurring fees other than just the subscription fee. We can opt out any time. But like I said when I started my presentation, we're using Cellebrite because they're the industry leader for what it is that we're trying to do. This other piece just gives us an advantage, and it also helps streamline the storage process. But if we don't like it, we can absolutely pull out.
So the subscription fee is what we're going to be paying, which $21,800 for storage at this point was what we're understanding.
Correct. And I should add that right now, just Caldwell and Nampa PD are involved in the task force together. We have a lot of interest from other agencies, including the Canyon County Prosecuting Attorney's Office. However, when the proposal was brought forth, they had already closed their budget process, so they weren't able to jump in. But I can tell you that we have buy-in from many other agencies locally here to help bring that cost down with more people joining on the task force.
Wonderful. Thank you, appreciate it.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Mr. Scott?
Captain, so is the 58 or 59,000 roughly, is that a one-time fee, annual fee, or how does that work?
So if the task force is just 2 departments, it would be the same cost next year for the subscription, for the contract fee.
Okay.
But any other agency that is added, those fees will be split up and distributed amongst those other groups.
Okay, so it's on an annual basis, though, is that correct?
Yes, sir, it's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, very good. Thank you so much. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so with that, before the council is consideration of this resolution. Again, this authorizing the purchase of the Celebrite data extraction analysis and measurement software in the amount of $58,835.
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
So we have a motion from Councilor Stoddard and a second from Councilor Register for the approval of this resolution. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, with that, then voting is open. All votes are cast, and that vote, or that does pass unanimously. So, and appreciate Captain Rosen and our entire police department, what they're doing. Criminals are using AI, all that stuff, so we need to make sure we're using it too. So appreciate what they're doing and being more as effective as possible. So they got a hard enough job already, so it's good to help them out with what we can. Okay, that moves us into action item number 10, consider acceptance of the finance report.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Williams.
I move that accounts payable in the amount of $4,552,768.64, represented by check numbers 172795 through 173031, and payroll for the amount of $738,097.43, represented by check numbers 38975 through 39055, and direct deposits be accepted, payments approved, and vouchers filed in the office of the city clerk.
Very good. Do we have a second?
Second.
So we have a motion from Councilor Williams and a second from Councilor Register for acceptance of the finance report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That motion passes unanimously. Okay, that moves us to council reports. Councilor Register.
Yes. Let me get my notes. First, and I'm sure we're probably all gonna acknowledge it, but just the passing of Mike Pollard and our condolences to his family. So there was that. And then I also was so our next meeting's on November 7th.
Correct.
Which is also the start of Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month. So I believe we're going to submit a presentation, not a presentation,
Video, right?
Well, that's the police department's doing something about, why can't I think of it now, where you say whereas and...
Oh, a proclamation.
A proclamation, yeah. And so if that gets approved, that will be read. So just a reminder that it's purple. I'll be here in my purple. You don't have to, but if you want to, it's purple.
Purple out.
And then Councilor Allgood and I had a very productive meeting with Planning and Zoning about a week ago, I guess. And part of the reason why we wanted to speak to them was because of the lack of the comprehensive plan and just the amount of time that it was going to take to get that back up, to catch up to where we are now, all that kind of stuff. So we had a really good conversation with the Director of Planning and Zoning. Steve Jenkins was there, Morgan, and that was it, right, I think. And we had a really nice roundtable discussion about kind of what's lacking right now, sort of where we think we need to be, something just, he's going to elaborate on it as well, but I have the notes. So some of the things we talked about right away, though, providing that the mayor decides to move forward with this, to bring to council, are to establish or at least have whatever we need in place for the right design review committee to go over what the automatic use parcels look like and whether or not council needs to be involved in that. And there was some application approval criteria that we also talked about, and the projects get approved downtown without council approval. So those were some of the things we talked about. I assume that she'll be following up with you about what you want to bring to council, but those were kind of the things we thought we might tackle quicker while we're waiting for the rest of it to happen.
Excellent. No, I appreciate you taking the time and meeting with staff and working through that. So that's always, communication is so key, and so opening those avenues is important. So appreciate that. I'm sure, yeah, well, I know that Robin and I are meeting soon, and we'll be going into detail on all that, so appreciate it. Anything else?
No, but we did decide that Steve should probably design the city. So he has some really good ideas.
Very good.
So
Yeah.
if you could just, put everything in the right place. It seems that he's got some great ideas.
He does. He's amazing. We're lucky to have him. So, and Robin, both of them are awesome. Councilor Static.
Yes, first of all, I want to make everybody aware we're having a benefit for the veterans on November 18th from 11 to 2 p.m. at the Veterans Hall. It's going to be a crappie fillet feed, and we'll have crappie fillets and potato salads and beverages. And you don't have to buy tickets, free will offering. So we hope that you folks can mark that down November 18th. I want to give kudos. The Urban Renewal Agency had a meeting last night. I want to give kudos to Mrs. North and Mr. Doty for doing a wonderful due diligence on that new Urban Renewal Agency area that didn't come before the council tonight because of some issues. And I also want to give kudos to Commissioner Moore for some excellent financial questions too at that meeting last night. Really, really appreciate it. Just gives the council the opportunity to be a better job relative to taxpayer money. So that's all I have.
Very good. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Councilor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. How do I say this and stay positive? A letter was released in a press release from our chief today, and I want to remind everybody that this is a new day in the Caldwell Police Department, and I want to commend all of our current police officers, men and women, sworn and unsworn, the professionalism, the integrity, the hard work. Really, they deserve a lot of credit for some remarkable work and movement that's been done. And so, in spite of some difficult news from a previous employee, I just think it's always important that we continue to support those people that work and live with integrity day in and day out, 24/7. They never take the badge off. I know that sounds weird, but when you're a police officer, you live at a higher standard. And so my comments are intended to deflect from difficult news today, and again, commend our command staff for leadership that is being seen department-wide. And then there is something else going on the next time we meet as well, and so I would remind everybody listening the importance of going to vote.
Yeah, it is. It's very important to vote, so agree with that completely. Councilor Allgood.
Well, ditto on everything that Councilor Williams said, that they kind of covered everything there. But just following up on what Councilor Register said, it was a very good meeting, and one of the things it did is it brought to light how much work we need to do on our development plans. And one of the things we asked Director Collins was to provide the council with some training, because I can see we're lacking in communication and training between what they're doing and what we're doing, and we learned a lot just in that brief meeting that we had. One of our primary concerns and one of the big parts of the discussion is that we have so many ordinances that need to be updated. These ordinances, I mean, the comprehensive plan is important, but I think the ordinances are probably even more important. And we just need to have, I don't know how that communication would work with all of us, but we just have a lot of work to do. And so I would encourage all of us counselors to stay involved with that because of so much we have to catch up on.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Councilor McGee?
Other than how dapper you look tonight,
I still got
Mayor,
it on. We got through quick.
I don't have
the whole time.
I know. I think it's the reason why, right? No, nothing to add to that. Thanks, Mayor.
Might have to dry clean it after tonight. But, no, yeah, I appreciate all those comments made, and yeah, so and yeah, acknowledge the passing of Mr. Pollard. He did serve our community in many capacities, and appreciated all the efforts that he gave to really maybe to what he kind of gave and wanted to see his community at. So appreciate that effort. Those never go unnoticed on that. And yeah, I appreciate again, staff meeting again with Counselor Allgood and Counselor Register and working through some of those things. And, you know, we are always trying to improve and try to do better. And so we need to take a step back sometime and look and see how are we doing our processes. And maybe we're doing them great, and that's wonderful, and maybe we're not. And so we can see how we do that better. And I always tell people, you know, a zoning ordinance, whatever it may be, is a living, breathing document. It's not something set in stone that will never change. It's something that's looked at on an annual basis and sometimes even more regularly. I know we're actually going to be meeting here soon and talking about a change that somebody's wanting in that, and if feel merit, we'll bring it to council for further discussion. But it's something that always we want to look at. And, you know, as the times change, those things need to change as well. So we appreciate you looking at that and seeing how can we improve and continue moving forward down the path where we're at. Obviously, there's a lot of growth and things like that moving forward, and you know, it's an exciting day for that. We encourage and, you know, like that development. We want to make sure it's done in a right way, but, you know, development spurs, you know, residential development spurs commercial development spurs industrial development, which spurs jobs, which spurs, you know, increased tax base. So it all kind of goes together on that. So it's important to still look at that and see how can we best implement all of those things. So appreciate all those that were said. And was mentioned, yeah, we do have one more council meeting. I guess elections won't be quite over, maybe by the time we're done, but there is a election coming up. And so just encourage everyone to get out and vote. I mean, it is so important, you know, whoever or whatever you're going to vote for, to get your voice heard. And that's how you can do it. And so, you know, get registered, and whether it's, you know, early voting, absentee ballot, voting the day of the election, whatever works best for you, do it so you can get out there and get your voice heard on that. And wish the best of luck to those. I know it's not that people ask me what's the worst part of being mayor, and I don't know if you'll agree, maybe it's the worst part of being council members, but it is campaigning. Elections are never fun. And so I know that we have obviously Councilor Williams and Councilor Allgood are running for re-election. We have, I just think, one in the audience, Mr. Dittenberg. Imagine there's a few maybe at home listening. So wish you all the best of luck. Again, I know you kind of put yourself out there on that, for good and for bad, and appreciate you being willing to do that. I think it's important for people to stand up and really be willing to put themselves out there, put their neck on the line. And so we need that, and we need good people doing that. So wish all of you the best of luck coming up in 3 weeks that are running for office. And I think that is all that I have. Just want to make sure you all know I appreciate the work and effort that's given on that. I know at times we may disagree or have different viewpoints, but that's a good thing and a healthy thing. You know, as long as we can continue to respect each other and respect each other's opinions, it's good to have different insights, and it leads us to a better solution at the end of the day. So really appreciate working forward on what we're doing, and we all have the same end goal, I think, at the end of the day, to make Caldwell the best place possible. And it's neat tonight to hear about, you know, the senior food produce program, only one in the state. Phenomenal. You know, the things that was just presented by Captain Rosen moving forward with the police department on that. So it's exciting to have those things, and Caldwell leading the way rather than trying to play catch up or follow behind. So Caldwell should be proud. I'm proud of Caldwell. And that's all I have. So we do have an executive session. So if we have a motion on this one, we do need a full motion on this one.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Move that we move into executive session pursuant to Idaho Code Section 74-206, subsection 1F, for the purpose of discussing pending litigation or where there is a general public awareness of probable litigation.
Very good. So we have a motion from Councilor McGee. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilor Stoddard for executive session as detailed. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll for that?
McGee?
Yes.
Allgood?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Dottie?
Yes.
Register?
Okay, very good. So we do want to thank the public that's here this evening. Appreciate you coming out and hanging out with us. Mr. Moore, I know you already have really big arms, but we don't want your head to get too big from all those compliments you got. So he's not even listening to me, but appreciate his service on our Urban Renewal Commission. So, and Mr. Porter too, I see you here as well. Thank you for your service on Urban Renewal. So.
Yes. Oh, man.